Chairman.
Paul Foster Bill.
Mr Chairman.
I'm going to hear the Honourable David Cunliffe.
I appreciate the opportunity. In fact, my first opportunity to offer my support to this bill, and that to reiterate that of the Labor Party. I want to use this title and commencement opportunity, which is by convention an opportunity to sum up some of the arguments that have been raised during the course of the bill, in the committee stage in particular, to reiterate firstly, in relation to the title, thank you, Mr Whip, firstly, Labor's support for the bill, because our priority is and always has been to keep New Zealanders safe. It is important when we have prisoners returning to New Zealand that they are both monitored for safety and rehabilitated into society. I think it was Tony Blair who said, and it's not that I agree with everything he's ever said, certainly some things I don't, but I like the line where he said it's important to be tough on crime and tough on the causes of crime. And we must ensure that this bill and implementation addresses both of those dimensions. Sir, that is why Labor lent its support to extended supervision orders and why we have consistently pushed for the government to establish an information sharing regime with Australia in relation to deported offenders. However, we have had some concerns with this bill. And I see the Minister sitting in the chair, and like my colleague Ruth Dyson, we were both at the White Ribbon breakfast. I need to acknowledge the Minister. I thought she spoke very well to that occasion. I'm not sure that the Minister's timing's been as good with this bill. We've known about this issue for months, close to a year. We're here 2 days before the first plane loads of detainees ex-Christmas Island are due to touch down. And we're passing this through urgency in Parliament through all stages, denying the public their normal opportunity to have input through a select committee process. And the question has to be asked, and the Minister may care to address it, because we ask the question respectfully, why have we got ourselves into this situation? It's certainly not because the Labor opposition or other opposition parties have been stalling it, because we're supporting the legislation overall. So I do think the public does deserve an explanation as to timing and process. Secondly, sir, in relation to the management and information aspects of the bill which are contained in the title, sir, the management requires both, as I said, the tracking and public assurance function, but also the rehabilitation function. And as the House has discussed this bill through the committee stage, and we've worked through it clause by clause, as my colleague Kelvin Davis has repeatedly said, there ain't much here about rehabilitation. And it's very practical stuff. When someone gets off a plane who hasn't lived in New Zealand since they were 2 or 3 years old, and that was 30 years ago, and they have no family here, and they have no friends here, and they have no job here, and they have no money because they've been in prison, say in Australia or in detention, and they get off the plane and they have whatever it is, the $100 that they get started with, and a voucher for a motel for 5 days, what then? And the answer is there's sweet nothing for them beyond that. And the likelihood is, sir, that the lowest common denominator will emerge, and people may be taken up by gangs or other environments that are not going to be conducive to the public interest. And sir, it's so much cheaper and so much better to put the fence at the top of the cliff than the ambulance at the bottom, to keep people out of bad company by supporting their integration back into society. So in the title of this bill, management and information, we just wish there was a bit more management to go alongside the information. The second thing we want to raise, sir, is that part of the regime for the most serious offenders has to be triggered by the Department of Corrections. Again, a management and information issue. And the problem with that is the department has been rumpy, would be the best description. The Minister's been on termination watch over his management of the Serco circus. We've had fight clubs, we've had violence, we've had drug use, we've had all sorts of carry-on in the privatised prisons, sir, and it's been very much the same as the sort of things that have been shocking the public about Christmas Island.
That's not part of this.
So the management of corrections has been wanting, and we want to make sure that the management of returning offenders under this bill, sir, Mr. Chairman,
Stuart Nash.
Mr. Chairman, I think a good name for this bill would actually be closing the gate up